This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and...
Not the other one. Hello, welcome to episode 167 of Partners in Crime. Adam Croft joined again, second week in a row, by Mr. Graham Bartlett. Hello, Graham.
Hello, Adam. Keep coming back like a bad smell, don't I?
You do. You can't get rid of the police, can you? Once they're onto you.
Exactly. It's hard enough to get hold of in the first place.
Yes. For those who don't know you, former detective superintendent of Sussex Police, and now, a very prominent crime fiction author with your first book coming out. Next week?
Yeah, next week, next Thursday. Yeah, Bad for Good comes out, yeah.
Oh, how are you feeling?
I'm sort of having a three-way swing between nerves, excitement, and just kind of can't really believe it. So there's sort of a bit of imposter syndrome going in there as well. Mm.
Yes, I can imagine.
I'm sure everyone goes through that on their debut. But
well, you've been very highly thought of. They're putting a lot behind it, and you're certainly getting your name out there. So I'm pretty sure it will do well. But yeah, wishing you all the best for next Thursday. Because you won't. We won't have spoken before then. Well, we probably will have done because we'll be recording the next episode if you're on it. If you want to be on it, a couple of days before then. But
if you'll have me,
yeah. If you can squeeze us into your schedule and what's going to be probably the busiest week of your life. I was going to ask you something actually, Graham, because there's been a few news stories in the news this week about real life policing. So it's quite good that you're here this week. One which caught my eye was about the new Chief Inspector of Constabulary, Andy Cook, who's been appointed with responsibility for overseeing the operational procedure of all police forces in England and Wales and making recommendations for improvement. He has had an interview in the Times in which he said that we're not the thought police. He seems to be pushing back, or at least to be seen as pushing back against the over-policing of non-crime hate incidents. Can you explain for us what that means?
Yeah, I mean, it's an odd thing to say. I mean, I am absolutely an advocate of defining what the police should be doing and ensuring that vulnerable people are protected from those that either directly or indirectly through online or other means seek to make their lives a misery. So I think kind of sound bites like that are unhelpful really, because a non-crime hate incident, the non-crime bit really just relates to a classification, a bureaucratic categorization of that incident, whereas to the person themselves it might be absolutely life-changing. If we take misogynism for example, if people are subject to that day in day out, at the moment it's not a police matter, but this is making their life a misery. So I think it goes back to the debate about defining what the police should be doing and shouldn't be doing, recognising how stretched they are, and recognising that some people require more protection than others.
Well, this is something he kind of goes on to say. He says policing is busy enough dealing with the serious offences that are going on, busy enough trying to keep people safe, presumably claiming that those sorts of incidents, in his mind, aren't serious. But the statistics from the Home Office seem to show that 6% of all crimes resulted in a charge last year, which is equivalent to 1 in 17 offences being solved. Which falls to 5% for burglaries and just 1.3% of rapes. But of course, that's not all down to the police, is it? To say the least.
No, and it's the same with any figures really. Lies, damn lies, and statistics, and you have to kind of look beyond what the numbers are telling you. So, I think that at the moment the police aren't solving enough crimes. And I think of those crimes that are solved, not nearly enough are going forward to court, and not nearly enough of those are ending up in convictions. But it's a whole criminal justice service response. So where you say sort of 5% of burglaries, that's probably very true. Now, when I was doing my last job in the police, we were kind of held to account on a 20% solve rate for burglaries, and that was only 1 in 5. So 5% is pretty shocking, but You have to sort of understand the resourcing. Back in my day, we used to attend a detective used to attend every single burglary, whether it's of someone's house or business or shop. Doesn't happen anymore. So the chances of solving those are hugely reduced, and that I don't want to keep kind of going back to resourcing, but that does come back to resourcing, and it does come back to this very nebulous idea of what the police are for, and therefore being spread too thin. But having said that, going back to the comment about what's serious and what isn't serious, that all depends on the person who's suffering it. I might find something, that I can brush something off, in a heartbeat, which you might find very disturbing and very worrying. It's a case of contextualising whatever the crime is.
Yes, I mean something that is very disturbing and very worrying is an article that I saw. Well, I didn't see it. It was in that reputable and always correct publication, the Daily Mail. But
yeah.
Regardless, I'll report what they're saying. That there's been an explosion in the use of machetes by gangs, with offences rising almost sixfold in 7 years. They're now being used to perpetrate an average of 22 crimes a day, including robberies, rapes and murder. The machete rates of offences have doubled in 2 years alone, according to figures released under Freedom of Information laws. And apparently the true figure is likely to be even higher because the Metropolitan Police, the nation's largest police force, didn't actually provide statistics towards that. So this is literally just outside of London. Machetes, they say, have little legitimate use in the UK, but bizarrely are not on the list of banned blades, such as butterfly knives, which are included. Do we know why machetes are not on the list of banned blades? Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. That's not correct.
Okay.
If you carry a bladed article in a public place, you commit an offence, and I think by any definition of a machete is a bladed article. So
it doesn't need to be specifically named. Then I'm guessing.
No. Bladed article is all it needs to be. But in some ways, if that report is true, that's very worrying. Not surprising, and I absolutely concur with them that those figures, despite the fact that the Met didn't contribute to them, those figures will be a massive underestimate, because how many of those incidents are actually reported to the police? So
if they're gang on gang, probably not many.
Exactly. So, but it is worrying. I mean, the whole issue of knife crime and this gang violence is hugely worrying. The proliferation of weapons. You hear kids talking about, I went out with a knife because for my own protection, and it's almost self-fulfilling that everybody's got a knife for their own protection, and then who blinks first is the one that pulls them, and it's such a worry, and I think that's something that is a societal problem, not just a police problem. The police can enforce it, but actually, how do you get into kids' heads that the very carrying of weapons, whether or not it's a criminal offence or not, puts your life at risk?
Yeah, very, very true. I presume not many of them listening to this. Maybe there are. Hello, gangsters. Maybe. If you are listening, please put your knives away. If you want to watch it, gangsters, then you can do. You can perhaps use some of your drugs money to subscribe to our Patreon programme, because patrons get early access to every episode of Partners in Crime. They get to watch it in full video. Access also to an extra bonus episode each week, which we'll record after this, Partners in Crime, Arsenic and Old Lace, and you also get a free book of the month every single month. This month, June, it is Where the Bodies Are Buried by A.S. French, a standalone crime thriller. That's normally $3.99 on ebook, but it's yours free if you're a patron. The discount code will be in your dashboard now, and if you're not a patron and you'd like to be, go to don't do that. Go to patreon.com/Partners in Crime podcast, or click the link in the show notes.
Just to clarify on that, previously we're not advocating money laundering into the Patreon, are we? When you say spend your drugs money to sign up to be a patron, we're not.
I don't care where it. I don't care where it comes from.
Okay, fair enough. As long as we're clear. I'm
going to go through a list in a little while, actually, of something I saw on a Daily Record, which is a list of the top names of people most likely to be criminals, based on charged criminals and which names pop up the most. So we'll get onto that in a little bit. If you're still listening, still with us, you might find out if you're likely to be a criminal or if your next door neighbour is, and you can look at everybody you know with those names with suspicion for the rest of your life. Bookseller carried an article this week about the McIlvanney Prize longlist. McIlvanney Prize is an annual award which goes to the best Scottish crime book of the year. This year's prize will be judged by Ao Onatadi, the winner of the CWA Red Herring Award, and freelance crime fiction critic Janice Forsyth, presenter of the afternoon show on BBC Radio Scotland, and Ewan Wilson, crime fiction buyer from Waterstones in Glasgow. The finalists will be revealed at the beginning of September, and the winner will be announced in Stirling on the 15th of September. It's sponsored again by the Glencairn Glass Company, and the Bloody Scotland's debut crime novel of the year. They're also sponsoring that, and the shortlist announcement for that is on the 28th of July. But the long list for the McIlvanney Prize this year is A Matter of Time by Claire Askew, The Sound of Sirens by Ewan Galtz, The Blood Tide by Neil Lancaster, From the Ashes by Deborah Masson, The Heretic by Liam McIlvanney, there we go, he's already got the name in, hasn't he? Rizzio by Denise Mina, May God Forgive by Alan Parks, Ambrose Parry's A Corruption of Blood, A Rattle of Bones by Douglas Skelton, and Louise Welsh's The Second Cut. Have you read any of those, Graham? Put you on the spot?
No, I haven't, but I do know Neil Lancaster quite well. He's a fellow ex-Rosa, so I've done some stuff with him. So yeah, no, he's a great guy, really good writer as well. I've not read The Blood Tide. I've got it as ever. It's in my to be read pile.
Well, you've been busy this week, from what you were telling me, watching TV.
Well, I picked up on this drama Sherwood, which is on BBC One. It was on Monday and Tuesday, and I think it's on consecutive Mondays and Tuesdays now for the next 3 weeks. And it's basically it's about a series of murders in a Nottinghamshire ex-mining town, which is absolutely riven with the divisions of the miners' strike of the 80s, and some of the characters were strikers and some of them were workers, and if you're old enough to remember, like I am, that was a huge animosity between both sets of people, and somebody's going around basically executing or trying to execute people with a crossbow, and they bring up somebody from the Metropolitan Police who policed the area as a PC during the miners' strike. We're only 2 episodes in, but already we're starting to hear about the role of the Special Demonstrations Squad, which was the undercover unit that used to infiltrate protest groups and single-issue groups with the view to basically trying to find out what they're all about. And some of them went over the top and ended up fathering children with some of the people they were supposed to be targeting. I'm getting a sense that the theme is going to be all about some of these characters embedding themselves in this in this village, and then it all coming back to roost nearly 40 years on. Wow, it
sounds good. What channel is that on?
It's on BBC. It's on iPlayer as well, and it's fascinating. It's one of those ones where I thought it was going to run every day this week, and I got to the end of last night's Tuesday night series and episode, and was devastated to find that I had to wait till Monday.
Well, it should be on the iPlayer if you want to catch up on that, as is, and then we'll throw this one out there, last week's episode of Who Do You Think You Are? I don't know if you saw it, Graham.
I didn't see that, no.
Well, it was Richard Osman was on there, best-selling crime writer now, as well as everything else.
Yeah.
He was
local
the latest.
To me.
Is it
local
indeed?
To me. Lives up the road, yeah, from
Does
a place
he?
called Cookfield, which is just near Hayward Heath, yeah.
Has he got a really tall house, or has he maybe just had the upper floor
Very
taken out? And
yeah. Absolutely, yeah, open top house.
Pokes out the sunroof.
Yeah.
Well, for those who don't know, Who Do You Think You Are is a genealogy programme, basically, isn't it? Where people celebrities track down their family history, normally finding something very interesting in it. And he did, because he found out that in 1841, his ancestor, a fisherman called Gabriel Gilliam, found the body of a dead woman in Lover's Walk in Derbyshire. Richard went to investigate the apparent crime scene. I mean, he's a bit late now, isn't he, by about 150 years, but he found that the body was that of Celia Holloway, a servant from Brighton, of all things. It was in pre-police times, so therefore Gabriel had contacted a peace officer. He appeared as a witness at an official inquest which found that Celia's husband John and his lover Anne had likely committed the offence, and the two were sent to trial. Richard went to Lewes, where the trial was held, and was told that Gabriel gave evidence against John Holloway in court, and in what is described as a sensational moment, he attempted to put the blame on Gabriel and accuse him of carrying the body to Lover's Walk. Celia's husband was then sentenced to death for the murder of his wife, and Anne was acquitted on slim evidence, and the case was said to have attracted huge media attention at the time. So, very interesting, worth a watch on Who Do You Think You Are when you play it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I bet that trial lasted about half a day. Back in those days, trials were they were racking out about 10 or 12 trials a day in some of these assize courts.
Yeah, who do you think did it? Him? Okay, lovely. Yeah. You can hang. I mean, it would speed things up, wouldn't it?
Got some issues with it, but it would definitely speed things up, though.
Yes, no, you and me both. So yeah, do go and catch that if you can. I should probably get on to pointing out that any books or anything that we talk about, you could, or really should, get from Kobo, who very kindly sponsor Partners in Crime. They're one of the world's largest ebook retailers, and if you've never bought from them before, you can get 90% off of your first ebook purchase using the promo code CRIME22 at the checkout. And if you follow the link in the show notes, if you've already claimed that, then there are some selected titles that you can get 40% off of for life using the promo code PARTNERS22. And Kobo have recommended two this week. The first is The Other People by C.J. Tudor. Driving home one night, Gabe sees the face of a little girl he knows in the rear window of the car in front. She mouths one word, Daddy. It's his 5-year-old daughter, Izzy. He never sees her again. The police believe she's dead. But 3 years later, Gabe still drives the roads, searching for the car that took Izzy, never giving up hope. And the other is The Black Dahlia by James Ellroy. It's the first book in the classic LA Quartet crime series, set in Los Angeles in January 1947. A beautiful young woman walks into the night and meets a horrific destiny. 5 days later, her tortured body is found drained of blood and cut in half. The newspapers call her the Black Dahlia. For two cops, what begins as an investigation becomes a hellish journey that takes them to the core of the dead girl's twisted life. And soon, professional curiosity spirals into obsession. That's their two recommendations this week.
I have read the C.J. Tudor one. That is amazing.
Yes.
Fabulous. Have you read that?
I have. I've read them both, actually.
Have you?
Yes,
of course you have.
What, I don't get around to reading all that much, but I have actually just read both of those as it happens.
Well done.
I was going to say, well, we're talking about Richard Osman and his heritage with one of his ancestors having discovered a body. I don't know. I know you listen to Partners in Crime. I don't know if you heard the episode probably a couple of years back now where I'd been tracing my family tree and I had somebody get in contact with me on the popular genealogy website to say that they'd found a newspaper cutting from, I think, the early 1800s, maybe even late 1700s, I can't remember. And it was the front page, back in the days when they didn't have photos or anything like that. It was just dense with text. And it was about a man who had committed a murder. He had killed his daughter and then turned the gun on himself after their son had died of other means the day before. Apparently he was completely stricken with grief. And I looked this up and went through my family tree, and it turns out that man was my great-great-great-grandfather. So, yeah, that was quite a shocker. So if I ever get famous enough for Who Do You Think You Are, that'd be a good one, wouldn't it?
Directly descended from... There, though, haven't you? We all
directly descended from... no one listens to this, we're okay. But, so there we go, BBC producers, if you're listening, hit me up. Right, that article about the names of people most likely to be criminals. It's an interesting one. It says new data has revealed the top UK names with the most criminal charges between 2019 and 2020, because names play a huge role in who we are and how people perceive us. But can a name determine whether you will be a criminal? Graham, from your just from your experience, do you think there is any link? Are there names that you saw cropping up more in policing than perhaps you would in everyday life? You don't have to mention what they are.
Don't think so, but it's a lovely idea, and this is great for writers, isn't it? If you're looking for names, particularly, I mean, if that data goes back as well, if you want names of, ne'er-do-wells back in the 80s, then that's the place to turn to.
It is.
But what we did find is a lot had the same surnames because tend to be tends to be a family business sometimes, crime. So a lot of same surnames, and some of those didn't have a lot of imagination with first names either. So you'd have 4 or 5 generations of Charlie Smith or whatever. They'd all be Charlies, because they couldn't really think of another name. So, but yeah.
Charlie not on the list. No, Charlie's not on the list. Right. No, I'll give you the male names, the top 10. Do you know what? It's a fairly standard list of names, actually. I think it probably fairly closely follows what you'd expect. I mean, it's 2019, 2020, so I'd imagine you're looking at most of these people being probably between sort of 18 and 40, 50, something like that. So the names, would kind of shift back, I suppose, in popularity. But I'll do the countdown, shall I? Top of the pop style. Number 10 is Andrew, with 660 criminal charges. Christopher, 691. Lee, close 8th, with 701. Mark's had 742 criminal charges, as did John's, tied in 6th place. James, the name of my son, in 5th, 796. Paul with 874. Michael with 895. And the top 2 both surpassed 1,000 criminal charges in this year. 1,001 for Daniel in 2nd place. And David, the biggest criminal name, with 1,010 criminal charges.
That's an interesting batch of names, isn't it? Because obviously James is your son, but most of them, they strike me as being sort of 30 plus. And
yeah, I mean, only 3 of those criminal charges were his that year, I must point out.
Yeah, you got a grip of him after that.
So got a grip of him, yes. He's down to 2 a year now.
Good lad.
The female names as well. Females appear to be charged far less, because in 10th place, Louise with only 75, Michelle with 80, Nicole in 8th with 85, and in 7th place, Rachel, 98, and Kelly in 6th with 99. And it doesn't go much over 100, actually, with the top 5. Lauren, 101, Lisa, 103, and the top 3 were Claire with 104, Amy with 111, and Sarah, the biggest criminals, with 117. So if you have friends who are called Sarah and David, I would hide your best silver when they come round.
Indeed. Lock it up.
So there we go. Is that about right? It looks like we've got, I mean, in terms of the numbers, we've got sort of 10 to 1 male to female charges.
I think that is probably right. In terms of charges, it'd be. I mean, I'm not advocating doing this myself or that anyone should do it, but it'd be interesting to see what proportion of those went to prison and for how long, because there is some research which says that women tend to go to prison sooner in their criminal career and for longer than men, proportionately. And it's almost, I mean, this is kind of conjecture, but it's almost down to the outrage that women can behave in such an unladylike way. So send them down,
Set an example for the rest of them, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a real problem.
But yeah, so 10 to 1. I mean, do you think 10 to 1 crimes committed by men and women are just less likely to, or is it that perhaps violent crimes are more men and that kind of outstrips the rest, or?
No, I mean that doesn't surprise me, to be honest. I think certainly violent crimes definitely, because men tend to be more violent, although women can have their moments too. Sexual offences, mainly men, and acquisitive crimes. You don't get very many women burglars, shop robbers. I mean,
or maybe they're just really good at it.
Probably is. They're probably because
they're just really good. You don't catch them.
Exactly, and I always say that that the police have to rely on an element of stupidity to be able to catch anybody. So women are smarter than men. I think that's what it's telling us.
Maybe women are committing far more crimes than men. It's just the men are too thick to get away with it.
I think you're probably right. I think that's it. I think you nailed it there, Adam.
Watch out for those women. Now, your book, we were saying, is out next week, next Thursday. Yeah, but do go and buy a copy, but you might win one, actually, because Graham's publishers have very kindly given 2 signed copies of Bad for Good for us to give away to listeners. Now, you have to be in the UK or Ireland, I'm afraid, to enter this one, or at least have a friend who is, who you might want to send it to, because the publishers can't send them abroad. I think they've either run out of stamps or it's something to do with rights, one or the other. But to win, you just need to answer the following question. Which police force did Graham spend his entire career with? And we do have to ask you a question because otherwise it's a lottery and not a competition, and we get told off. So email in your answer to hello@partnersincrime.online. Which police force did Graham spend his entire career with? Graham, of course, former Chief Superintendent at Sussex Police. Hope you've enjoyed your time on the show again this week.
Absolutely have.
And hopefully, we've got to have a question. It's just the way it works, unfortunately. It's just the law, isn't it? You know, I'll try and find a loophole. We'll hopefully find you back on the podcast next week if you can squeeze us in.
I'll make a special effort.
Do you have much planned for launch week? Have they got you darting about all over the place? Or?
Well, yes, is the answer. Lots of sort of signings and that sort of thing. A couple of them we've had to delay because of the train strike. I was supposed to be doing an event in Brighton with Mark Billingham and Tim Weaver, and whilst Brighton's easy for me to get to without the train, not so easy from Bath or North London. So we've had to put that back to the following week, and a couple of others. But yeah, I mean, I'll do lots of radio interviews and signing books and things like that. Yeah, so very, very busy, very exciting week, and looking forward to it, and hopefully people will buy it, enjoy it, and look forward to the next the next instalment in what I'm calling the new cop on the block, Chief Superintendent Joe Howe. Oh,
next instalment, is that on already? Is that you've been typing away? How far?
Yeah. Well, it's with my publishers, so
blimey.
Just waiting for the copy edit to come back on that. So, but they seem to like it, so that's good. And I think that's going to come out in about spring next year. I think about the same time as the paperback for Bad for Good. And the books are available in all formats as well. In fact, the audio book was released yesterday for pre-order, which we're very excited about.
Excellent, and more on the way.
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, my contract's for 2 books, so they've got those 2, and hopefully they'll look to give another one.
They'll probably go quiet for a week or 2 until they see how this one's done. That's what they normally tend to do.
Yeah,
we'll just be busy. We'll let you know. Wait for the sales for the first one. And, But I'm pretty sure from what I've seen and the buzz, I've got a very good feeling about it. So I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more from Joe Howe and from you. But we'll be seeing you next week again anyway. Have a good one. I think we're going to go and record Partners in Crime, Arsenic and Old Lace, but I'm going to give the studio a 5-minute airing beforehand because it's absolutely roasting out there today.
Roasting. Lovely days. Mustn't complain.
It's going to get up to, 30 by the end of the week, I think.
Smashing. Love it.
Yes. I've time to put my summer duvet on, I think. Still got my big, heavy 13 tug one on and suffering.
No,
I know.
You need to get with it.
But I only remember when I get into bed in the evening.
Then you can't be bothered, can you?
You can't be bothered by that. It's a bit late by then. So gonna go and fetch that out the loft, I think. Which, of course, will also be roasting up there now.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Get one of your staff to do it. Get your staff to do it.
I'll send Jeeves up.
Yes.
Send Moriarty up there.
Don't know what he might say.
Well, true. You never know. All right, I will see you very shortly for Arsenic and Old Lace, and if you're not a Partners in Crime patron, then we'll see you next week.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and
Not the other one.
produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Beisch. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.